Okay, good afternoon. Today is June 18th, Thursday, June 18th. It is 4:03 p.m. This is a meeting of the Hanson Recreation Department. This meeting is going live remotely through Global Meet, and those in attendance are Diane Cohen,
John Zuko, Vice Chair.
Alyssa Scartesi.
Brian.
Sorry,
Brian.
I put it on mute. Brian Frazzetti.
Joan.
Joe Frazzetti.
Thank you. And Bill Boyle, yeah.
Lori Jameson.
Good. And we have with us Health Agent Gilamato and Board of Health member Arlene Dias. Is that everybody? I think it is. Okay. The only item on today's agenda is whether or not we are going to open the cove. So I'm going to ask everyone to mute while Bill presents his plan to possibly reopen. The plan will be presented with various scenarios, anticipating possibly loosening restrictions in the future by the governor. So before we begin, are there any questions that we want to ask about any of this? Okay.
Yeah, please. If
Okay.
I could ask, since Gil and Arlene are here, there was a letter sent out that's in question right now. It was dated on June 2nd. At that time, it was listed that we should only be having 10 people on the beach, but from what I'm to understand, we can run as a regular beach. Can I maybe get some clarity which rules we're going to be looking at today from maybe Gil or Arlene, so that can get straightened out before we even start this?
Okay, Brian, thank you for that question. Gil, I'm going to turn that over to you right now.
Okay, we're following the beach guidelines on phase 2. I've worked with Bill on this, so maybe Bill can present his plan and then we can follow afterwards. How's that sound to you?
That sounds good. So the question has been answered. Fall under the beach. Would everybody please mute their microphones? And I'm going to ask that Mr. Boyle present his plan.
So to reference the email that Brian is referencing, yes, I did include an email from our health agent where at the time, we thought it, or at least we figured it was a confined space due to the fence. There was some clarity that we are going to be considered an inland beach, which means that we can adhere to the memorandum of the other beaches where once somebody puts their towel down, you now have to give them 12 feet in any direction. And, essentially we work from there. So Health Agent Amato and I went down there. We measured, again, somewhere toward the back of your packet are going to be, there's an aerial map of Cranberry Cove. There's one from the assessor's office, and then there's just a Google map with some hand drawings and some rough calculations. It appears we have about 10,000 square feet or thereabouts down at the beach. When you start to account for areas that we're not going to be able to use, whether it's, again, because the office is there, the tight tank, the guard stand, the culvert, passageways for the lifeguards to get down to the water and the stand up to the office, equating for passage between people's designated spaces. We roughly have about 5,000 square feet that we could feasibly map out designated areas for people to sit. I say 15 because when you take the 5,000 square feet, and if we do even say the 12-foot rule, and then we also account still from that with a 6-foot distancing, you roughly get an 18 by 18 square, which gives you 324 square feet. when you divide that up by the 5,000 square feet or thereabouts, it's just over 15 spaces. So that being said, with the way that rule is also regulated, it says no more than 10 people gathering at any spot. So by what they are saying, that means, I guess, feasibly or unfeasibly, with 15 spots, we could potentially have 150 people down on the beach at once. That's kind of the way that it's laid out right now. So because of that, if we were to open, I don't think we would have to do the reservation system. Based on that, we could do it first come, first serve. Again, it's adhering to social distancing and all of that. So that's kind of where we are in terms of the space in, rough predetermined spaces we would have for people.
Okay, could I step in now?
Please
Okay,
do.
thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
Bill.
That's
Hold on.
self-including. You have to realize. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Bill, I did want to just point out one thing, that I'm concerned about the reservation system not being put in, only because, yes, we could have 150 people, but don't they all have to be from the same household?
No, only that's why we would be putting designated spaces that people from the same household have to be in those spaces.
Right. So when you talk about 150 people, yes, we can have 150 people. However, we could have 15 groups. So typically at the beach, if you're counting it by groups, we typically have more than 15 groups of people at the beach on a hot day. So I believe a reservation system may need to be put in place. I just wanted to put that out there. Go ahead, Mr.
If we need to go to a reservation system, Unipay says there is a way to do it.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to mute now and go ahead, Mr. Amato.
Yeah, I'm muted.
Okay, in discussing everything with Bill, you still have to, there's like 3 or 4 different governor's orders that you have to adhere to. And while people on the beach, they'd have to wear masks. They don't have to wear masks in the water. So that's one of the issues you'd have to, deal with, having people wearing masks. We have other issues like the cleaning of the restrooms. The restrooms have to be properly cleaned. The state is now suggesting one thorough cleaning at the beginning of the day and maintaining cleaning during the rest of the day. Also, the trash. People are supposed to, whatever trash they bring, they're supposed to take home. You're not supposed to supply trash barrels for the people. Should have wipes and sanitizer, for the patrons of the beach. And also, you have to be careful as far as the wipes. Wipes are not flushable. They generate, people usually try to flush them, and that ends up taking a toll on the septic system. So there's many things that, have to be addressed in the opening. I'm suggesting there's like, you can't have snacks. That's also in the beach's guideline for managers. Different things like snacks. You can't be selling snacks, and different things that the people using the beach have to abide by. And I think the biggest thing is the social distancing and the mask, because you're going to have people there that want to be sunbathing and wanting to do different things, and they're not going to be able to. So these are different items, along with all these governor's orders and things that take place at a beach. So I think you should be very cautious of what's going to take place. And Bill and I have really gone over a lot of these things, and we have concerns. People going in and out of the water. People going to come out of the water where they feel like it, and are they going to stop or wait for the person in front of them to go 6 feet? It's hard to say. So I think these are all the things that have to be addressed. I think my feeling is that it's still somewhat confined. I mean, you can open up both gates. You're going to have lanes for people to go in and people to come out. So maybe opening up the other gate, could create another lane for you. But I still feel it's in close quarters, and that should be taken to effect. How are you going to police all this? I mean, how many people are you going to need to police this, and and be cautious of everybody being safe? Protecting the people from being safe. To be safe. So I mean, there's a lot of thought in this. I think Billy's done a lot we're studying it. I've supplied all the orders for them, and if Bill wants to add more to this, I'm looking at some of the things now. If he wants to add more things that we have discussed while we were down there looking the area over.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you correct, Mr. Amato, your concerns in reopening are the wipes in the septic tank, social distancing coming out of the water and maintaining proper distance, and creating lanes with the second gate, which is easily doable. And and cleaning the bathrooms? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, cleaning the bathrooms and trash. The trash, the beach guideline says, you bring your trash with you take your trash home with you. So
Correct. So we simply don't have barrels down there. We post a sign and we don't get a dumpster. That actually saves us a little bit of money. Okay. Melissa, I saw your hand up. So Joan or Brian or anybody else who wants to speak, please politely try to interrupt when Melissa is done. Go ahead, Melissa.
So I just had a question about the face mask. So reading the memo from the state, beach guidelines for managers, it says the order requires any person over the age of 2, whether indoors or outdoors, to wear a face covering or mask. They cannot maintain 6 feet of distance between themselves or others. So I read that as, you can wear the mask. You don't have to, if you're sitting on the beach in your suit, you don't need to wear your mask because you're maintaining 6 feet.
Right. I read it as one or the other.
Yeah, I believe it's transitioning. It's like it is with the restaurants right now. When you get down to sit at your table, you can take your mask off. The second you get up to either go to the bathroom, do whatever, the mask has to go back on until you're able to get back to your designated spot. So I believe that would be
that, like when people are sitting on the beach, they're not going to have to wear their mask the whole time. That's all. Okay.
No, but the second they get up, they're going to have to do it. And the trouble is going to be, at least in that transition to the water, because yes, they don't have to wear it in the water. But in what article I was reading, it suggested that they just shift the mask over to the side of their head so that they can breathe. But I also wonder how many people are going to still take the mask down with them. And then I think the bigger issue, and it was brought up last week by town council, was with the social distancing in the water. Is first of all, there aren't any guidelines on that. There is nothing on how to do that. So it may sound a little ridiculous, but I did equate for, we would have to probably put another guard literally in the water with a 6-foot pole to police the distancing and tell people when they're too close that they have to move apart. The other issue remains is now that they're in the water and they're not wearing their masks, somebody jumps in the water and then comes up from underneath the water and they spit the water out of their mouth, or again, like we've all done, like we've all watched our kids or our nephews, nieces do, they spit water and everything. And that's when that really becomes an issue, because obviously this stuff is all spread through water droplets and everything. So even with controlling so many other things, everything goes out the window in a situation like that.
Bill, can I ask why we would need a third guard if one guard is on the docks and one is in the water with people?
Well, we, again, if we need somebody policing, so we would need a guard probably up in the guard stand, maybe one on the dock. But again, if they're on the dock and they're just looking at people in the water, they can't necessarily tell whether or not it's 6 feet. We would have to be in there kind of measuring the distance from people.
Right. So one guard could be either in the guard stand or on the docks, and another person could be in the water. Correct?
Correct. But it also remains that if we do have more than 50 people at the beach, we would have to go to a third guard anyway, because, we have to have a guard for every 25 people.
Is that, did the fire department weigh in on that?
They did, and they said it is not worth the liability to try to to try to minimally staff lifeguards.
Okay. Mr. Zuko.
I have a question regarding all the spaces. We have 15 spots, which can fit up to 10 people. How do we determine that someone is, what if two families want to share the same spot? And they have a problem, are they signing a waiver of liability that mind sharing the same spot?
I think based on the no more than 10, they would either have to get spots close or near each other, but they wouldn't all be able to pack into the same one. We would have to adhere to that no more than 10 person rule.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If they 5 from one family, say 5 from another family, and they want to share the same spot, would they
No,
be
it's
able
going
to?
to be same household. So the second it's for two different, even if they're, like cousins or whatever, if they don't all live in the same house.
Right. So
the way
what
it's
are we going
written,
to do when they start screaming at us? Start screaming at you.
that's just one of the many problems, John, that I see.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It is. The other problem that for me is the contaminants in the water. I mean, it's not an ocean where the water is continually moving and cleansing itself. It is more of a still water. So that's concerning to me. That
Yeah, and
disease
actually the way that it mostly flows, it goes out the river, it goes kind of up toward where Sandy's Coffee is. That's the only reference point I have because I love Sandy's Coffee. But so the way the water moves, it actually moves toward the cove into that culvert and then up the river. And especially the way the wind is most days, everything is moving toward the beach. So another issue that was raised is that if you just have boaters or people out on kayaks and say they sneeze, they spit into the water, what have you, well, that their mucus and stuff is sitting on the water now floating toward our beach area and people swimming in the water. And that, also grosses me out.
So, Bill, we're looking at 3 lifeguards, 1 in the water, 1 on the dock, and 1 on the beach. Is that what we're thinking?
That's it. The way that I'm seeing it, if we have to try to socially distance people in the water, that would be my suggestion. I mean, certainly, I guess we could try to do it with 2, but again, we're trying to plan for a situation during a pandemic, and again,
How many gatekeepers are we looking at?
per shift, at least, I know no less than 2.
No less than 2.
Because we're going to need one manning the gate. If we have both gates open, then they're each going to have to station a gate, but rotate cleaning duties because, the way the rule is written, it says you have to clean the bathrooms once a day. I would say we should at least be cleaning them every hour because again, if you just clean them once a day, well, everybody that's gone in and out of that bathroom for that day has just touched everything. And again, I did put in this packet, there was, again, the things we can and can't control. And again, that's one of those things, we can put all the signage up in the bathroom to wash your hands, to not spread coronavirus. But that's not something we can police, obviously, that would be illegal. So
That's something that the whole world is facing right now. So may I ask, Bill, did you do the financial numbers?
Yeah, that should be the very first page of the packet that everybody was sent.
Okay, would you like to go over those?
Certainly. So if you all turn to the fun, colorful page, in the top left corner, last season numbers. So 131 season passes, 42 swim lessons, 162 kayaks, for a subtotal of $18,291, which we immediately do not have access to because we can't do any of that. Our day passes, 2,334 for $11,620.
So I'm not asking about last year's numbers. I'm talking about this year's numbers.
Well, I'm using that as a frame of reference so that we again can compare at least some things to last year. With this year's numbers, if we look at actually this middle part, so we've got the orange bar that says, in order to meet or exceed hygiene and cleanliness, we'll need to staff 2 gatekeepers instead of 1. So the first one only has 1 gatekeeper staffed, which I don't think we would need more. So in this middle scenario, 2 gatekeepers, 2 guards, and a beach director. The beach director being scheduled for roughly half the time. Weekly salary, $3,612. So when you break that down, the daily amount is $516 a day. So based on last year's passes at $5 a pass, we would need to do 103 passes a day. If we up it to $10 per pass, then we only need just shy of 52 passes per day to break even, to meet our cost. And again, we're not factoring in, again, what we're going to have to pay for cleaning supplies and all that, but this is based just solely on wage and personnel. I also ran under the red bar there just a scenario for extended hours, because that was potentially on the table. And so that weekly salary amount jumps to $4,550 for a daily amount of $650 a day. So at $5 a pass, it would have to be 130 passes per day. If we up it to $10 a pass, 65 passes a day. Again, if we did have to go to that third guard to socially distance in the water, that adds another $120 per day, or an extra 24 passes at $5 or 12 passes at $10. So I mean, really, what we're looking at is, we over the 9-week period for staffing 2 gatekeepers, 2 guards, and the beach director. At $5 a pass, we have to do over 6,500 passes, or if we up it to $10, 3,200 passes.
In the course of how many weeks, Bill?
That is using a 9-week. So I just used, again, July and August as a figure, so that when you look at July and August, there's 9 total weeks.
Plus a week in September, because we don't close, because there's a weekend in September. We don't technically close until Labor Day.
Right, but even when you look at the daily amount, it's going to tick up a little bit. But looking at 9 weeks, we're looking at having to make just under $33,000, $32,500.
Right.
So basically, we're looking at a financial disaster.
Among other things, yes.
Does anybody have any questions, comments?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Health-related question, and either Arlene or Gil can answer this. What are their recommendations?
I'm going to let Mr. Amato go first, and then Arlene, I would like to hear your perspective too, but I would ask that both of you consider the financial piece, the health and safety piece, as well as the town wanting recreation piece. So with those 3 things in mind, can you please answer Mr. Zucco's question?
I'll go first if you like. Okay, first thing, just clarify something here. On the beach guidelines for managers, it refers to COVID-19 order number 31, which that was the governor's order ordering the face covering to be on at all times in public places if social distancing cannot be accomplished. I don't know if I gave you that. I believe I gave you that in that packet, Billy, maybe not, but it's order number 31, facial covering. Yes. Public places. So I feel it's going to be very difficult to manage this and to control people that are trying to have fun and go in the water, cool off, and relax and enjoy. I feel it's going to be very hard to manage this. Financial part of it, that's up to you. I mean, I think the safety of the public is the most important thing of all, and social distancing, which is a precautionary measure towards the COVID-19, because there's no vaccine, there's nothing that can stop it. other than social distancing and face covering to prevent it. So I think that's very important. I think managing that is very important. In a gathering like that, I still feel it's close quarters, and you're going to have a lot of people. It's going to be hard to develop lanes. People are going to be running back and forth, side to side. So it's going to be very difficult to manage. You also have, you know, young people managing young people. So I think it's difficult on my point of view of everything. I've tried to, you know, give Billy as much information as I can, and you know, we've measured, we looked it over, and I think it's kind of tight. It's a little bit hard to do. So you know, my opinion is that I don't think it's doable. I think you got to be very cautious of what takes place if you do decide to open it.
Thank you, Mr. Amato. Ms. Diaz?
Hi. I guess I would wonder if Billy did a scenario where you would have those 3 separate times a day that people would go in and out. At one point, there was talk about 9 to 12, 12 to 3, 3 to 6. If you mark out places where people are supposed to be, there's 12 feet between each group. So that gives you your social distancing. I still wouldn't say to people not to wear their masks, but that still gives you more than double the social distancing. I think there is a way to manage. Do you have to get 150 people in there all at once? No. You can even separate how many groups. I think if you planned it through the course of the day, you figure out how many passes. I think it's really hard to charge somebody $10 and then, you know, they're going to stay there all day. They're not going anywhere. So that's all you're going to get in. You're not going to get the flow, and you're not going to get the numbers that you need unless you pack the beach. I think there is a way to do it, which is safe. I looked at the guidelines this morning for cleaning the bathroom. I don't think that's a big deal. I think it's a little overzealous to say it has to be done every hour. During the regular season, would you do it every hour? No.
First time we've had a pandemic.
I understand that, but even if you had somebody go in
We're
and
gonna let
spray
Mrs.
every hour,
Diaz speak.
you have to let it dry. You spray everything down and you have to let it dry. If you felt that you wanted to do it every hour, that's fine. I really do think that there is a way to make that space available to people that is safe. And I think it just needs planning and a little tweaking in terms of, you know, how many people you need to get to pay the amount that you need to cover your daily expenses. So then you figure out a schedule that allows you to do that, where you're not completely packing the beach all day long. I don't think that it's not doable. And I think that the guidelines are clear. Like I said, you have to have 12 feet between each group. That more than covers the social distancing that's required. And you're going to get mostly families with young kids. I don't think you're going to get a lot of teens wanting to hang around the groups of young families that are in there all day long. I understand people have reservations about that, but I think that it is doable, and I think that it's doable in a safe way.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to comment? Have any more questions regarding Bill's plan?
I wanted to ask, I was under the impression that we weren't going to sell passes for a full day, that we were going to limit them, because then if you did that, then the math would be much different. I thought we were doing 3-hour periods. I mean, to give somebody a full pass for the day, most families only stay a couple of hours. You're not going to, I mean, you can't do that. The beach will be empty by a certain time. There really needs to be set time frames. And, you know, having been to the Cove, I can tell you it's going to be a stretch to even get my teenager there. You have the majority of the folks that use that are younger families and maybe older people as well that come to read a book or just to come, you know, to get cooled off. So I really think we need to do the adjusted times and just have people buy into those time slots, because then that's a much more controlled scenario.
Okay, thank you, Juvie. Bill, did you allot for a time period? I think we had talked about, you mentioned extended hours because we had talked about that. And I think we had spoken about opening the beach from 9 to 6, I think it was. So having 9 to 12, 12 to 3, and 3 to 6, and reserve that way so that people could have a block of time where they would prefer to go. Did you do numbers for that?
I did those. Those were the old numbers when we were being told that, again, the numbers on the beach were going to be much more limited than what the guidance is saying. So I pulled back on that. I can resend it, but I pulled back on that because that was just a measure of, again, it saying that, okay, we could only have 10 to 20 people at a time. Again, based on the way the rule is being handed down, as long as we have all the spots marked out, we can accommodate 100 and some odd people. And again, we can, and based on this scenario, I had the beach opening, I think essentially 10 to 5. So it's, again, that's still that 7-hour period, but instead of 12 to 7, we're opening it earlier. The staff would be 9:30 to 5:30. So it's based on an 8-hour day for staff. Again, we can do that rotation, and it ended up being that I did it on a 4-pronged rotation, so I can tweak it to be 3 hours. But again, one of the things that we had talked about is, how are people going to feel when we go and kick them off the beach?
I think
And so
that's what, before you purchase, that is a given. That's a given. And
Julie, let's let Bill speak, and then I'll let you speak. Go ahead, Bill.
I get it that, again, I would certainly be fine with doing that, but again, the fact remains that we're going to have people that are settled in and enjoying themselves on the beach as much as possible while wearing masks and being surrounded by caution tape. But we're then going to tell them, okay, you now have to get up and get out and make room. And again, what if that at that time, the other thing that's hinging on this is that we're under the assumption that we're always going to have people there. If there's nobody there and we're coming and kicking these people out, like, what's the point of that? I think if we just, again, make a designated amount of spots, we can go in a first come, first serve as people take up the spots. We can accommodate up to X amount of people, and then we can just take it as people leave. Then we make room for more people that want to come on the beach.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Juvie, go ahead.
so, having used the beach and also talking to other families, I can tell you that no family that I know that I've spoken to, you're going to have maybe a handful of people who will buck against, these regulations. But I think, number one, the shock of the beach being opened, I think will just, most people are just going to be thankful to have that option. And in terms of actual usage, if you think about that, most people only use the beach 2-3 hours. If you really did take, I wish we'd taken maybe more of a survey, but there are only a handful of families that literally stay from when the beach is open until it is closed. So in terms of the reality of the usage, you're going to have families that are not going to be there the entire day. You're going to have families that are typically using it 3 hours to maybe 5 hours tops. And I really think that if you did those slots, it's much more of a controlled factor because at all times how many people you've got. And given that this is the only beach open, every single town has shut down their beaches, and there are very few, even the YMCA, there's just very few places where you can go. I think that we're going to be able to fill these time slots. If you do the simple math in the 3-hour period, even if we had, we were just basing this on, maybe selling, was it 20 passes at even $5, right? That's $100. And I think we did a little bit more. I don't know what the numbers ended up being because of the situation, but it looks like we could sell more than 20 passes per time slot, right? We're no longer looking at that number. How many?
Right. Again, on the rule, necessarily need to do the reservation system. I mean, people are still going to have to pay online. We're not going to be doing any sort of cash transaction. But
But can I ask you, how many?
Hold
the
on.
reservation,
Hey, excuse me. Bill, we are unable to hear you. Judy, I think you're mute for a second.
I'm sorry. No, we were.
Okay. Thank you.
I was looking to. Wanted to find out how many passes we could sell at capacity. I just wanted to use those numbers, and then because
We
I
already-
in the packet that I sent everybody, the very first page has the breakdown of cost passes needed based on whether it's $5 a pass or $10 a pass.
well, you
So
did
in
you
that
you
middle slot, under the orange bar, is the most likely scenario, having 2 guards, 2 gatekeepers, and a beach director for half the time the beach is open. It's $516 a day that we need. So at the current prices of the passes being $5, we need to do 103 passes per day, every day.
So 103 is max that you can sell per day, but we didn't talk about the 3-hour. That changes. If that's the case, you can technically sell that in 3 different increments, like a 9 to 12, a 12 to 3, or 3 to 6. So
yeah, and then that's assuming that we get 300 people coming in and out of the beach. I mean, most times we have, I think I've heard Emma refer to having maybe like 100 or so people. Again, if we can avoid the having to kick people off the beach based on being able to space them appropriately, I don't see why we need to make it more complicated with a reservation system if there doesn't need to be one.
well, you could do a first come first serve, but if you can only have 100 people from 9 to 12, you can only have up to 100 people, and if people show up past that, and this is what you've already said that the data that you've had in the past, you'll never get to that scenario.
Right, and we never get to it. Still trying to do the rotation of 3 different things, because that's again under the assumption that we're having 100 people roll through each time.
Diane?
Right. And you open up your revenue.
Hey, hold on. I think what Juvie is trying to say, Bill, is that we wouldn't need to pack it with 103 people every time if we had a reservation system for 3 hours. So you could spread it out a little bit, taking time off, one slot so that another slot could fill up. Whatever, like it would be spread out over 3 different times. It wouldn't necessarily have to be filled at every time period. I think that's what she's saying there. So, Juvie, would you agree or no?
Yeah, exactly. Because, if you're saying you can only have the 100, for that particular day, then you've limited the revenue. If especially on a very hot day, you could really reach those numbers easily, close to those numbers. So say for a scenario like this, even if you didn't do the 9 to 12, maybe you did half a day. You could only use the beach half a day. You reached a scenario where like there were a lot of people, you get about 90 families in there, or not 90 passes, 90 passes. And then, you do a shift change and you say, okay, all the morning folks, we need to let you know that the usage of the beach is done and we have to clear the beach. And then you sell another 90 in the afternoon for the afternoon folks to come in. I mean, in essence, you've just increased your revenue. So there goes the financial piece of that. I mean, that I can see that scenario happening. There are a lot of, families whose young children wake up really early. They want to be at that beach, the crack of dawn. And then, these guys are done at noontime. They're coming home for naps.
Right.
And then you'll have the other families with the children that are on a different schedule. I mean, I think that you just provide, you provide more choice, and secondly, you provide more revenue. I don't see how. I mean, if you think about parks, water parks, they have 2 sets of revenues. The morning till like 4, and I think like a Water Whiz or something will have a different price
price for families that are coming after 4 o'clock, because they bank on the fact that a lot of those families are done. Families don't stay at a water park the full
Right.
time. They'll leave. And so, I think we don't have to make a reservation system, seeing as honestly, I don't know that we're going to sell 106 passes each time, but it certainly will double that if we split the time frame. I mean, we could even say like a 9 to 1 and then maybe a 2 to 6. I don't know, whatever time frames. And then now, instead of being able to just sell 100 or so passes, we can now sell up to 200.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Hold on, I'm going to let Arlene, you can speak and just say, I just wanted to say that maybe the 2 time slots might be better, only because it would give us the hour to give people lunch and to clean bathrooms. Arlene, did you have something to say?
I just did quick math, and so I figured if you had 90 people on the beach using 3 time slots, that's a little over $1,100 a day, which I think covers the staff. And that's not maxing. That's just saying 90 people total on the beach for a time slot period. So I think if you play around with that, you can sort of get an idea of what you need to do to cover your costs.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any other comments, questions about a possible opening or not opening, concerns?
I have a
Melissa?
question.
Yep.
We didn't talk about kayak rentals.
Okay.
We didn't, is that,
Do we rent
that-
kayak?
based on
I
the
think-
fact that it, again, presents another area where there could be exposure to COVID, and that we only generated $1,600 last year, I don't think it's the cost benefits worth renting the kayaks.
Okay, does anybody have any comments on that?
Yes, wait a minute. You are hiring extra people to be there to clean. You're willing to clean a bathroom every hour, but not willing to wipe down a kayak? I don't know about this. If you have that extra gate attendant, we
Hold on.
I know that we can.
Excuse me. Hold on, Juvie. Bill, can you please wait to comment until she's done speaking? Thanks. Go ahead, Juvie.
No, I'm just thinking in terms of, increasing the revenue. I feel as if we have these precautions. We are going into phases where we're easing restrictions. We're at a point now where, I think that we also have to give people the benefit of common sense. You have parents that most likely will not want to rent these kayaks for the same fears that, you put out about, contamination, whatever. But we need to be able to, say that our staff would be able to wipe down this kayak, have a family use it, and have the same kind of protocol that we have for cleaning the bathrooms. I just don't feel like limiting that. We should be able to do some of these things, with the precautions, and it's not rocket science. I just really don't know why we're acting as if there's like this humongous pandemic breakout. We don't have that. We have decreasing numbers. We understand how to, clean and disinfect things, and we have extra staff on hand. So I feel like.
So basically, Juvie, you're saying you would like to consider kayak rentals if we do open?
Yes, but with a system in place. Yes, with a system in place that where, we have our extra gate attendant doing that. These guys are going to be sitting there watching, paint dry. This might be something that would be helpful.
Okay. So are there any other comments related to kayak rentals in the consideration of opening?
If you're renting a kayak, you need a life jacket, correct?
We do have life jackets there, John.
So now you gotta disinfect those.
We would have to disinfect life jackets and the kayaks, and we would only be able to rent the kayaks at some of the kayaks 2 people can get into, I believe. They would have to be from the same family, obviously. But I also don't think that, you know, at this point in a budget, any money that we can make out on them is good money. So, that being said, is there any other comments with that?
I didn't charge.
Yeah, could I ask, if, and this might be a question for Gil or Arlene,
Mr. Frizette said,
what do you disinfect the life jackets with? I'm gonna guess it's not Lysol. Is there a special chemical that we need to purchase, and how much is that chemical? Unfortunately, I don't have Brian Smith here because I can guarantee you this whole conversation about bathroom cleaning and people being not social distances, and we can fit 150 people on 15 towels, which is, I mean, who has 10 people in their household? I know I don't. We have 3 generations. There's a lot of, oh, well, we're not in a pandemic. This is a pandemic. And personally, I don't care if we make 10 times the amount of money we make every year. If it's going to save a life or save someone from getting COVID, it just doesn't make sense to me on a safety point of view. As John asked earlier, are we going to have these people sign waivers that say, hey, if you get it here, you know, you can't come back and sue us for it? And again, there is a pandemic. I think people are downplaying it more than they're really upplaying it. That's just my opinion. But to get back to the life jackets, how are we going to sanitize all this stuff?
Arlene or Gil,
You
would
could
you?
use,
Go ahead.
Arlene, you could use the bleaching water solution to disinfect them.
Arlene, I have a question then about that. Would we need to talk to conservation then about that?
You're not going to be, usually with that, you would be spraying them and allowing them to dry, to air dry.
Okay. That's fine. So would a Clorox wipe be the same?
Clorox wipe would be the same, but I think you would do better with a spray because you know
Okay.
you're going to coat the whole thing. And with the Clorox wipe, you can miss areas.
Okay, thank you.
It's a lot cheaper to do. All right.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
I do want to go on record saying, and as shocked as I'm sure Brian is too, I am in agreement with him that I don't think we should downplay the pandemic factor of this. And again, just because restrictions are easing, we're already seeing that 20 states are respiking. So I think we also have to keep that in mind, that we could be just around the corner from that. So yeah, Brian, I do agree. I think on the safety standpoint too, we've got to be careful. I did, again, include part of what I would like to do under all of this craziness, if we're allowed, is the no contact thermometer, and we take everybody's temperature before they come in. They got a fever, they can't come on the beach. There's also a health assessment of questions that you can ask them to gauge if they might be a carrier of COVID. And then at the bottom, a liability waiver, essentially saying at the end, I don't hold the town of Hanson or the staff of Cranberry Cove and Camp Kewaunee liable should I or someone from my family become sick, incapacitated, or perish from COVID-19. Like, that is the absolute worst thing that could possibly happen in this season, is that somebody gets sick and they pass, and then that's on us. And
Okay.
Melissa, I know that you're shaking, but as unlikely as it is, like, there's no way of ruling it out as a possibility.
Okay, thank you, Bill. I do believe that if we are going to ask, I do believe taking the temperature is a good idea. I do believe that the waiver is a good idea because you and I had discussed that previously. And we do have to just be very careful about questions you ask because you can't violate privacy. So I believe the only question you can ask is, have you been tested, and have you been feeling ill as of in the last 24 to 48 hours? I think it's something like that. I think there are guidelines upon what you can ask.
And I think we can ask the travel, like, have you traveled outside the state of Mass or the US? Like, that's, again,
Yes.
and again, from what I've heard, like, we may not actually be allowed to contact test everybody. It may be based on consent, in which case, if nobody consents to it, we can't test anybody. And then
Well-
there also may not be an issue with the liability waiver. That's something that town council would have to weigh in on.
Correct. Okay. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Anybody
Yes.
want? Go ahead, John.
So say we close the beach down, we close down Cranberry Cove, we don't open it. There's gonna be lots of trespassers swimming at the cove. According to town council from the Board of Selectmen meeting the other night, according to her, there were always buts, but you're not liable, but there are loopholes and certain things that could hold us liable. So we have
Yeah.
to sort of address those.
There are
Good.
loopholes, and we live in a litigious society, absolutely. And people are going to swim at the cove every day as they are today, and as they have been since good weather came upon us. This is just, again, to quote Brian, in my opinion, we have more control over the beach opening it rather than keeping it closed. But again, that's just my opinion. I think the town needs to consider both perspectives and what they want to be liable for. Given that COVID can be very serious for some people, I hope that nobody would say we should have done more to protect the place and make it less of an attractive nuisance as it's designated in insurance terms. Again, that's something else for us to consider.
So are no other town is open on their beach areas?
I know that Houghton's Pond in Milton is open. I'm not entirely sure about Pembroke. I believe Peters Pond in Sandwich is opening.
How
And,
about Braintree? There's one in Braintree, I know.
oh, yeah, Crystal Lake, I think.
Crystal
it is.
Lake, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. I'm not sure about them.
Mhm.
Bill, would you know?
I don't know offhand. No, I know Pembroke is looking into opening. I don't know that they've made a decision, but I know that one of the things they are looking into is the no contact testing before people are allowed on the beach.
Okay, so it sounds like people are getting ready. And the one thing we definitely do not want is to be the only beach around that's not open as well. So all points, yeah, you have to take everything into consideration here.
Bill, do you feel you have staff that can properly manage the beach area being open, in this type of situation?
Do I think they can follow the guidelines? Yes, but guidelines aren't guarantees. So even if we adhere to the way it's laid out, again, there is no guarantee based on uncontrollable things that could happen at the beach. The other one is a scenario that if there is, say, a water rescue or something where one of the guards now pulls a kid out of the water. Again, I believe it's been a long time since I've been a guard. It's no longer 2 breaths to 10 compressions. I think at this point, all you need to do are compressions and it fills the lungs enough. So I don't think there's any, again, mouth-to-mouth contact, or I don't think they need to use the pocket mask necessarily. But again, if you're now doing chest compressions on a kid and now he spits up a bunch of water on you or the people around him, again, if we don't know if that kid has it or doesn't, he's now potentially affected our staff, the people around them. And again, we not only owe it to the community to keep them safe, but also our staff. Like that's.
Okay, thank you. And I'd like to point out, you're right, Bill, there are no guarantees, but there are no guarantees in life about anything. So that being said, we have to err on the side, we have to consider precaution. We have to also consider our job as a commission is to provide recreation. So, did we lose Melissa? Oh, there you are. Okay. Any other comments, questions, concerns, more discussion? Anything anybody wants to bring up?
I have one last thing before we close here.
Thank you, Gil. Go ahead.
Okay, the Board of Health, we have an office that we talk to, it's called the Mass Department of Labor Standards, Health and Safety. And when this all started, I opened up discussion with them. They've Googled the cove, and they've taken measurements from Google. And I've talked to Bill about this, and as far as, that's why we measured everything out, trying to, square everything around so we actually know what we're talking about here, so that, in case something does happen, because someone complains, automatically it comes to us, the Board of Health, then it has to be automatically sent to the state. And the state starts an investigation. They make sure the Board of Health has done everything they can, educating everybody what they should do. And I think I've given Bill pretty much everything. We've talked a few times, but, I think we should go into more depth before you open, so people know what could happen. If something happens, they'll investigate it. The state will say, oh, shut it down, or do this or do that. So you got to be very cautious. I think Bill's done the most he can about it, and I think that the main thing is enforcing. And they've got no problem with it. They realize it's it's tight quarters there and whatnot, but they're not saying you can't open it, but just realize what's going to happen if you do open it. So I think Bill, I've given you pretty much all the orders that I have, referencing that particular cove and everything. So I think and you got to go on. You got to keep going because things are going to change. There'll be another audit tomorrow night or something, so things will change. And Bill and I have opened a good line of communication. So if you decide to open it, it's going to be enforcement, and that's going to be the hardest thing. So I think take that in consideration. Like I'm here to advise you. I can't tell you exactly you have to do it, but these are the guidelines set forth what you have to do from the governor, and I have to enforce those guidelines.
Thank you, Mr. Amato. Does anybody else have any comments? Questions, discussion, concerns? Mr. Amato, I would like to say then to your point about your Board of Health meeting with other boards of health. How do you think other beaches then would come to the conclusion about whether to open or not open, and enforcing rules if the beach is not open?
So what I see, what's happening with all the beaches around here, each town's waiting for a town to open their beach, and what guidelines they're opening up. It's like Duxbury Beach. When Duxbury Beach opened up, they waited for somebody else to open up, and then they went by the same guidelines along with the governor's order. So everybody around is pretty much waiting until the next beach opens up to see how they opened up. So that's what I see. And same thing with any rules and regulations. Most towns follow other towns' regulations, and they just adopt them or change them around. So I think everybody else is just waiting to see what does happen. If they wait for Hanson or Pembroke or what, you don't know. So, but that's how it usually works. Just following what other towns' guidelines will be, and everybody has to adhere by the governor's orders. And I don't know if I mentioned that on the beach manager's guideline there. That refers to COVID-19 Order 31, and that's a face covering. So I think you got to really look at that one, Bill, because I think I gave you a copy of that one. Governor's Order number 31. That does say everybody has to be masked. So
Yes, you already mentioned that.
Yeah. I think, whatever people decide what you want to do and whatnot, and I'll gladly work with Bill any way I can, making sure that, everything's up to date and what he has to do there, and, we can make it smooth, but his job is to make sure it's enforced, so.
Hey, Gil, I got a question for you. In regard to the face mask order, so I know that they are required no matter what. I know there's the small caveat about people with medical conditions that don't have to wear them. I obviously know that provided with HIPAA, we're not allowed to ask them the medical condition. But do we still have the right to refuse them onto the beach if they are not allowed to wear a mask?
Correct. I mean, that's still an iffy issue right now. There's still a lot of that's in discussion too. So I mean, that is a really up in the air issue, because you can't make someone say, hey, look, this is what I got. You can't make someone say, this is my disease. So you got to be cautious with that if someone says they have medical conditions.
Right, so could we just blanketly say, regardless of medical condition, if people are not wearing a mask, they are not allowed on the beach? Is that something that we could, is that a policy we could adopt?
I would say that's we probably adopt.
I mean, that works for me. But I honestly, I don't know if, and again, that's going to create a problem when we have somebody trying to come onto the beach that is saying they have a medical condition, and then we're refusing their passage to the beach. That will create another can of worms.
Yeah, I think that's still up in the air because you can't force them to say what's wrong with them. So.
No, and again, I'm not saying that we are going to ask them about their medical condition or anything. I'm just saying that based on solely the fact that they're not wearing a mask, regardless of medical condition, that we're not going to ask, just that we have the right to refuse service based on the fact that there's an order telling everybody that they have to wear a mask.
I'm not sure you're going to have that right because it could be term discrimination.
It says in the order.
I'd say probably, Bill, maybe discuss this, go back to number 31 there. I got the idea something.
I think town council would be the person to ask on that. I don't think that any one of us has the expertise enough to determine if that's a violation or not.
Yeah, I know. I definitely do.
Number 31, you can review that one. So
It says you can refuse them if they refuse to wear masks for non-medical reasons.
Okay. Arlene, go ahead, please.
Diane,
Yes, go ahead.
Arlene. Can you hear me? You can't ask them medical reasons, but if they tell you that they have a medical reason, you cannot refuse them entrance. You can't discriminate against them. And you definitely cannot ask them.
I thought that was the case.
That is the case.
yeah, I think we'll put a call in just to clarify that again. So.
And again, I think we should talk to town council about that, should this vote decide that we are going to open. So that is what we will do. We will refer to town council because that is what we pay them to do. They are better at interpreting the law than any one of us. And I think that goes toward a discrimination thing rather than, well, at least meshing discrimination during the times of COVID-19. Melissa, did you have something you wanted to say?
Not in regards to that, but just something else. I did do some research. Littleton, Mass, has a lake. It's Long Lake Beach. They are opening, but to residents only, and an annual pass is required. So they're only requiring residents of Littleton, and then they can't buy day passes. They have to buy annual pass. So that's just something that someone else is doing. And there's no water sports or other beach activities allowed. So I just want to throw that out there.
Thank you very much for doing that. Okay. Any more discussions, questions, comments, concerns regarding anything with the Cove and the possibility of opening it?
Oh yeah, don't forget, 10 days before the opening, the beach test, the water test has to be done.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anybody else? All right, then, at this time, I would like to entertain a motion that, I don't know if I should put it in the positive or the negative. So I guess I will say at this time, we'll entertain a motion of whether or not, pending approval of Board of Selectmen, pending water testing results, that we open the Cove for the summer season beginning July 1 through Labor Day. and putting into place all necessary precautions and guidelines as outlined by the governor's reopening plan, and implementing the scheduling structures and pay structures as outlined in Bill's plan. Oh, but wait, we can't, do we,
We're doing $5 or $10.
right, we need to decide on a price. We need to decide on opening in shifts, half a day, the whole day, whatever. If
I would
that's,
also just possibly like to suggest opening after the 4th, only because if we're opening and feeling this out right before one of the busiest weekends of the whole year, I think we could get off to a bad start, but that's just my opinion.
okay. Is there anybody else that has comments on that? So,
Yeah, I'd like to follow Bill up on that, please.
okay,
You're talking about opening on July 1st. We don't even have staff. The COM hasn't decided if we're going to hire, who we're going to hire as a cove director, and or we haven't interviewed anyone as a commission. You also have lifeguards that I know Brian Smith had spoke in the past that he would like to interview anyone who applies for a job coming into that camp. And there's no, you don't have enough time to do that. It's kind of absurd to even think you can. That's just my point of view. But I would also like to interview people for these positions. So we'd have to have meeting upon meeting upon a meeting upon meeting to remotely touch that date.
I think we can do it. I mean, we can set up meetings if we decided today. And by the next, when is the next Board of Selectmen meeting?
Next Tuesday, which we are scheduled to attend.
So we could have all, I mean, all the kids are local and they're all, if they've got their certifications, I think we could make it the week after, the week of the 4th, or the 4th is on a Friday, I believe.
Saturday.
A Saturday. We could open that Monday if we have that amount of time.
You would have to change the time of our meetings in order for Brian to make it also.
Well, Brian may or may not be able to make it. I mean, these are, we've hired staff down at the beach before. I think we only had one applicant for a beach director. So that's not a huge issue. And Bill, you said she seemed really strong.
Yeah, she has a strong background. She and Emma have worked together in the past. She does have some waterfront experience. So, I mean, I certainly think she could do the job.
Okay. I think we can do that. I mean, I know I can avail myself to be there for interviews. I've done interviews the last couple of years. It's not a requirement that we all interview everybody.
And I've spoke to the applicant for the beach director. And I reached out personally to our guards from last year because, again, with the uncertainty of whether or not we're going to open, none of the guards submitted applications. So I went and I called everybody. And out of, I think, the 9 or 10 that we did have last year, there's 6 or 7 that would be interested in coming back should we open.
Okay, then let's do this. We will put into the motion that it is also pending we can do have proper staffing. Is that acceptable to everybody?
Yes.
Juvie?
Yep. Yes. Yep.
Brian, Joan?
That part of it, yeah, I would accept if we have proper staff, but there's obviously other components that need to be, worked on. Which hours are we going to operate, or which hours are you going to motion to operate? So the motion has to be pretty much complete.
Right.
To move
So-
forward.
Proper staff. Also, what do we think about hours for the beach being open? And do we want to do it in shifts with a reservation, or do you want to do it first come, first serve? What are people thinking? If you don't give me some opinions or come to some kind of a consensus, I'll make my own into the motion.
I would say 9 to 12:30 with probably a half an hour break to switch everything around,
Yep.
and then go 1 to 6.
Well, that's not a fair split in the day then, John.
Okay,
that-
just
So 9 to 1 and 2 to 6?
you could do that. No, then you got an hour in between. You're wasting an hour. Do we
People
need
can
an hour?
They gotta clean.
Well, you can clean, you gotta you can rake the beach. You can fix anything that needs to be fixed. Do the spray down the life jackets, the kayaks if they need it. I don't know. I want to know what people think.
Those are prime tanning hours between 1 and 2.
I wouldn't know. I'm pasty white. Unless you want to go 9 to 12:30 and then 1 to whatever and close the beach early. I mean, I don't know. I'm looking for some help here.
I like those hours. I think that 9 to 1 is plenty of time. You'll find a lot of these families are out of there by noon. I think, like, if you think about the little ones with their nap schedules, you'll see that, especially lunchtime, where a lot of these families will want to go home for lunch, you'll have plenty of time to do any of the cleaning in that 1 hour. So it's very, I think it's fair. And then the 2 to 6, you have a lot of people who might want to come in the afternoon. You'll probably start seeing a lot of them coming in at like 3-ish, 4. A lot of people like to come to the Cove, later in the afternoon. So those are their times. I think those are.
And I think that, remember, we had a complaint last year or the year before saying that the beach closed too early when it was closing at 6. They wanted it to stay open till 7. So we're on the other end here, opening it earlier. Or we could do 10 to 1 and, 1:30 to 5:30, whatever you want. I don't know. What are people thinking? I need some, otherwise I'm just gonna call it myself. Bill, what do you think?
I mean, if we did, again, a 9:30 to 5:30, I don't think we should go any later than that, because again, last year, we were required at a certain point to close at 6 once, Tripoli and West Nile started kicking up again. So that's something else that we got to factor in, based on sun going down and all that. We got to probably have everybody cleared out before dusk.
Okay. So 9:30 to 5:30 and split it into 4-hour shifts, or?
Yes. Do an hour in the middle. Yeah. Agreed.
Okay. Okay.
Why don't you do 9:30 to 1 and 1:30 to 5?
Yeah, that's what I wrote.
Walmart closes at 5.
Okay. All right. All right. So, and what about charging people $5 or $10 per person? Or do we want to try to sell a pass for 2 months, or what do you want to do?
I just want to throw it out that I don't know if it was more requested or told from the treasure collector to not do season passes, partially based on the fact that if we get into somewhat of a season and then get shut down again, we would have to refund all that money that we charged people.
Thank you.
Which is why she suggested just doing the day passes.
Thank you. That's a good point. Okay.
I think given, just the financial strains on so many families, I think asking $5 per person is fair. Also, given that their time is going to be scheduled and sort of dictated, in a sense. So I think $5 per person, if you're taking a look at, a family of 5, that's $25. So I feel as if that's hefty for some families. But I think if you're going to make a commitment to come to the Cove, it's something that is going to be kind of a bonus for a lot of families to be able to do that.
Okay. Anybody else?
If I may again just point out, by only going with $5, that means we have to close to triple the amount of day passes over last year.
So at 100, didn't you say 100? And we have 2 sessions now, so you'd have to sell. If we sold all of, wouldn't that be $1,000? Doing my math right? I'm a little.
Well, all I'm saying is that to break even, it costs us $516 a day to run the Cove. So again, we have to do at least 103 passes every day to break even.
Throughout the day, no matter where they're spread out.
What's that?
Throughout the day, no matter where they are spread out, under which shift.
Correct.
Right.
So yeah, it would be gravy if we had within those 2 shifts more than, or 206 people come through. I think that is way too optimistic. Just again, looking at the numbers last year when we didn't have any of these restraints or fears. I think it's asking a lot.
Melissa?
The other thing too is, you're going to think about a lot of people are unemployed right now. They're not,
What?
sorry,
I'm
what?
sorry. Can you say that again? You went out on me.
There's a lot of people that are unemployed right now. So they're home. So they're looking for stuff to do. So last year that wasn't the case. So you might be surprised.
That's true too. And I think as Bill said earlier, there are just no guarantees on either side of any of this. I mean, we could get a lot of people that want to be at the Cove. We might get a lot of people who balk at going to the Cove because of COVID or because of the price for a family. I mean, we just don't know. So we're taking a risk either way. So you have to consider that as you vote. But I want to put forth a complete motion so that we can vote and report to the Board of Selectmen appropriately. So do we think?
I think if you're proposing $10 a family, just think about a smaller family size. You have 2 parents, 2 kiddos. It's $40 for that particular family, possibly an unemployed family. We are also a community place where we're supposed to provide these things to. I understand we need to make the money to cover the cost, but we're also a community based lake. So I feel as if going to $10, it's.
Yep. That's our mission, Juvie. You're right, is to provide recreation. That is why we are here. That is our purpose. However, we are responsible for our budget, and given the situation that the town is in right now, with a possible override coming or not coming, and the shortfall with the schools and everything else and COVID, we can pretty much bank on the town not helping financially in next year's budget. So in the past, they've taken the septic off of our plate, which was huge. It never should have been put there in the first place, but that's another story. So these are things we need to consider.
Well, you're already saying that if we break even at $516, we have 100 passes that we sell, and I think that's low. I really do think that that's going to be low. And given some of the busy days that we've had, you saw the number of day passes that were sold last year. I think that, given those numbers, that pattern, you're going to see that we're going to sell at least break even. I mean, I do believe that. I think that you're talking about 106 bodies, right? 106 passes at $5. That's, close to the break even point. I do think that you're going to have an ebb and flow depending on the day, but I think that we're going to break even, given that there are few options out there. We're talking about a supply and demand situation. We have a lot of families in this town that would really appreciate that and could use that outlet. We're talking about little kiddos that have been stuck at their home, without an opportunity to go out into public. And then even parents, this is a nice outlet and it's an affordable outlet. And that's what we strive to be. And I just think that, if we are not able to provide that at a reasonable price, then, opening is.
Juvie, what happened? Did she click something?
Did you not hear that? Did you hear that or no?
We heard it. You just went out for a second.
Oh yeah, no, I muted.
Oh, okay.
I have a house, remember? You don't need to hear them killing each other.
Okay.
In my opinion, $10 is not going to fly. $10 a person is not going to fly. I wouldn't pay it. Yeah.
I would agree with you. Okay. Well, have we covered everything, or should something else be in the motion? Anybody? Then I'll put forth the motion.
So moved.
Hold on. The motion is
Okay.
that pending the testing of the Cove water, proper staffing, and Board of Selectmen approval, that we open the Cove from 9:30 to 5 each day in 2 separate shifts from 9:30 to 1 and 1:30 to 5, giving a half-hour break to staff for cleaning and lunch, or lunch, depending on when they've taken lunch or if they need to take lunch. And we do so from the first, well, after July 4th, what is it, July that 6th?
I'll double check with Jean. I think we may have to start at least on the 5th, because I believe she said we have to start on a weekend and end on a weekend.
Okay, so beginning July 5th through Labor Day, not being open during the weekdays when school starts, from the time school starts until Labor Day. And yeah, I guess that's it. That's the motion, people. Sorry, it's not very pretty or professional, I guess, but go ahead.
So moved.
Diane,
Okay.
could you add also no kayaks, right? No extracurriculars? Is that what we said? No kayaks.
Oh, did we say no kayaks? Does everybody want kayaks or no kayaks?
Extracurriculars, yeah, no kayaks.
Swimming only.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to make a comment.
I'm sorry, Joan. I'm sorry, honey. I didn't hear you. You're far away.
I want to make a comment, please.
Yes.
Okay, my comment is that you can't present it this way to the board, to the selectmen. It has to be a protocol, and you have to have a complete list. The way you've just done it is not it. It has to be written down, and it has to be factual, and it's not. But you can do what you want as the voting.
So what do you mean it has to be factual?
You're exactly what you're going to do, step by step. I think, Bill, you started to step in. I'm not sure.
We did list it step by step, but it's pending staffing and it's pending the testing of the water, as Gil had said, and Board of Selectmen approval. Our plan is to open from 9:30 to 5 to the public in 2 shifts via a reservation system at $5 per person per day, not to exceed 10 people per group on a space, 12 feet apart from another space, wearing masks at all time, adhering to the governor's guidelines fluidly as they change, and with no kayak rentals. Why is that not acceptable?
Do your voting and let it go at that. And let the Board of Selectmen say what they have to say.
Okay, so moved.
Thank you, John.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Would anyone like to second it?
I would like to second it.
Okay, Julie. So you've seconded it. So all those in favor, and I will ask you individually so that it is on record. Please say aye or nay. Melissa?
Aye.
Thank you. John?
I'm going to abide by Mr. Amato's recommendations and say nay.
Okay. Brian and Joan? Oh, Brian, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the two of you on one call. I'm sorry. Brian?
Nay.
Nay. Joan?
Nay.
So, and I am an aye. So the motion does not carry. Oh, wait a minute. The motion is tied. The motion is tied. And we
Motion
need
does
to,
not carry on a tie.
right, I know that. So we would have needed Brian
Smith.
Smith to break the tie.
Yep.
So. that
No
is-
vote.
So, I'm sorry?
Oh, it's just, yeah, it's a no vote. Yep,
Right.
it's a no vote.
Okay. So it's a no vote? We take
Yeah.
that to the Board of Selectmen. We tell them that at
Yep.
the meeting.
Yep.
Okay?
We are on their agenda.
Bill, can we make another meeting time with Ryan to record for a time when Brian Smith can be here?
I will talk with Ryan and confirm. We do have a tentative July 2nd meeting. I will see what time we can accommodate with that.
Can we get a sooner one? Because this is only the 18th and there are 30 days in July.
I'll talk to Ryan and I'll find out tomorrow.
Okay.
And then I'll-
Diane, quick point of order.
Yes, Brian?
We have to have them before the end of June because Bill's review is up.
Right, and that's going to be on our next agenda.
Correct. So we can't go into July without at least addressing it.
Right. That's why I'm saying we need one in June.
Right.
Okay, we would look
Thank
to get one for the end of June.
The quicker the better, so that we can put everything into place.
Understood. I'll also submit an agenda to Beth tomorrow in the event that people are going to call into the selectmen's meeting.
Thank you, and the meeting needs to be 6 o'clock or 6:15, actually, if we can get
Which
that.
meeting are we talking about? The next rec meeting?
Yes, the next rec meeting. Okay, Melissa, did you have a question?
So when are we presenting this to the board, to the selectmen?
Tuesday.
We can't present to the Board of Selectmen until we have something that we all agree on to present. Not that we all agree on carries.
So Bill writes up and then before it goes to the board.
I'm sorry, what was that?
So Bill
I
is
think-
gonna write it up to present to the board?
I think, Madam Chair, if I may,
I'm sorry.
I think you could just say- I'm
Whoa.
sorry, I think you could just say that we met and there was a no vote, and then it goes to the Board of Selectmen on Tuesday, and they take their vote. Just because there's a no vote, depending upon which way it went, it was a vote, and it goes to the Board of Selectmen for their vote. That's my interpretation.
Okay. But I still think we need to meet and bring it to this commission again, and then to be.
Oh, yeah. I was just
Yeah.
talking about the Selectmen's meeting on Tuesday, that they
Right.
can keep it on their agenda and say the Recreation Commission met, and you know what, theirs was a no vote, and then,
Right.
if you want, I mean, that's
I know.
your call.
I knew what that Melissa meant. Melissa, you meant, are we even presenting this?
Yes, and that, I just want to make sure that the board, like the Recreation Commission, sees what is being presented, because we need to give them a plan, like what's the security, if we don't open, what's the security down the beach? You know what I mean? What are those protocols?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So does this mean that the camp itself, in terms of camping and every other activity at the camp, is done for the summer?
This
Because,
is solely for the Cove right now. The
No,
camp's
this
gonna-
is talking about the Cove, and we're gonna wait the governor's guidelines about opening rentals with camp, which the camp can be open, but we as a commission have to vote on opening the camp and what protocols we want to put in place for cabin rentals and such. Right
Well,
now,
I know that there's a time-sensitive request here, Bill. I know I had sent you that email in regards to the Boy Scouts. They had requested a July 5th through 10th day program.
Again, we only had the Cove on the agenda. We can't go into talking about other things at the camp and everything with it not being on the agenda. I am trying to coordinate with the Board of Health, because they're obviously going to need to weigh in, and we can set up a meeting that we can all possibly get together social distance wise. But again, we can't talk about this right now because we solely had the Cove.
I understand, but this was sent to you about 2 weeks ago, so I understand that. So if we can't talk about this now, if we can only talk about this in 2 weeks, and these people don't have a chance to plan, because on their end they need to plan. I guess my concern is, we're taking 2 weeks at a time into the summer. I mean, what recreation is going on at Camp Kiwanee? Could we just? It's making me mad, to be honest with you, to sit here and find out that this.
Point of order, please, before we go into an open meeting law violation.
hold on,
We are already there.
Juvie,
I know we are.
Juvie.
Right.
Ruby?
Okay. Move forward. Yep.
I thought you could turn. Hold on, I'm getting. Oh, I can't even hear clearly. Thank you. Juvie, we need to keep it to just the Cove. You can address your concerns to Bill privately about this, and we do have his next meeting coming up with his review. So that being said, I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting. I can't hear anybody. John, did you want to say so moved? Okay. Melissa, are you seconding it?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Mr. Frizzetti? Aye. Mrs. Frizzetti?
Aye.
Thank you. Melissa?
Sorry, I hit you.
That's okay. Melissa? John, did you already second it? And Juvie?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm an aye. This meeting is adjourned. We will meet again, Bill, when you set that up.
Yeah, I will talk with Ryan tomorrow. I'll shoot you a message after I hear from him.
Thanks very much. Have a good night, everybody.
Night.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night.